Ladies and gentlemen, we are here on Glittering Ashes for game number 1 between these two players. First up, spawning at the top right side, we have our Red Zerk playing for Dragon Phoenix Gaming and hailing from Korea. Give it up for Rogue.
And his opponent successfully pulling off yet another pro block on the hatch. It is the blue Protoss player playing for Alpha X, Zoun.
So of course, we did see Rogue face off against the Protoss in his first series of today. It was against Astrea though, not Zoun. Now of course Zoun and Astrea does have different playstyles, so it's going to be interesting, I would say, to see how Rogue, deals with Zoun's playstyle compared to Astrea's playstyle.
Right. Zoun definitely being the, would you say, more defensive of the two? Astrea, of course, being the more mind gamey, sort of like tricky of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Zoun's is more standard and just like sticks to maybe some timing attacks or just a straight up play.
Right.
Standard play. Astrea, definitely kind of a wild card there.
Well, how do you feel about stats versus Zoun? Would you say that stats is like the most defensive, or is Zoun sort of taking up that mantle as well?
Yeah, I would say Zoun is probably very comparable to stats, I would say. I think Astrea might be more kind of similar to Parting or Zest. So yeah, I think that's a good, fair comparison. Alright, so it looks like Zoun has elected to go for the Stargate play, which is no surprise.
I really like that Rogue is sending out his Ling to sort of do some scouting, in addition to the Overlords, of course. But Zoun, on the other hand, just going for a very standard Stargate at home with the Void Ray to open up. Oh, that's funny, because the natural base location is the third hatch. By the way, very, very nice drone save for Rogue. That Adept was able to just walk up and then shade out instead of shading up and walking out.
Yeah. It was pretty much an open door policy there.
Right.
Alright, poor Overlord will be going down before it reaches 2022, but...
Oh, so sad. It only lived for 4 minutes. Very nice scout with the Lings. Verifying that Zoun is going for well, what is that? Is that a quick or is that a standard Nexus at this point?
I would say pretty normal. 4 minute or so. Is,
yeah.
Pretty standard.
Man, I remember when 4:30 was considered quick.
Oh yeah,
I guess times change,
for sure.
Yeah. Now I like this. This is very interesting. We see Glaive Adepts coming up on the Twilight Council, a couple more gateways being produced, and we also see the +1 air attack. I think the first time I saw this was, I believe, Zest, with the double-pronged, like, sort of Void Ray plus Adept attack. I really like it. I think it's pretty tough to hold if you're the Zerg, but we will have to wait and see how Rogue responds.
Well, it looks like he does throw down the Roach Warren, so at the very least he will have some roaches to help defend. However, I think the depths should be... Oh wait, where? Oh, there's not a lot of depths actually. Never mind.
Yeah, this is a little bit funny to me because I see, we're seeing some chronos on the Nexuses, which is obviously an indicator that Zoun is trying to macro up. And yet at the same time, Zoun is able to go for a bunch of Glaive Adepts. He's able to go for the +1 air attack, which honestly, at this point, I don't think the +1 air attack is meant to really boost this attack in any way. We only see, what, 1 Void Ray and 1 Oracle out on the field. So obviously +1 air attack is not going to do that much to help Zoun. But it could be setting him up for a later game sort of Sky Toss type of composition.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, a little bit of supply block here for Rogue as the Overlord does get taken out, which means not as much roaches to help defend, but nice smart play here from Rogue to block off that natural. Again, this natural is really small, so you can kind of wall it off with just 3 buildings, and that has prevented the Adepts from getting too out of control with the harassment.
That's right. Ooh, just in time. Once again, that Evo Chamber block comes in, saving the saving Rogue just a little bit of time, you know, and effort. I'm sure he could clean up the Glaive Adepts if he needed to, but he doesn't have to anymore. So the Glaive Adepts are going to go and back out. A nice little stasis trap does catch out a couple of drones, but at the cost of the Oracle itself, so I would not say that's too worth it. And already we see a very quick hive, or I believe that's pretty quick, right? That's a pre-7-minute hive, and a Hydra Dent. I kind of sense lurkers, possibly?
Yeah, I think this has got to be lurkers. The timings are kind of lining up for a lurker play.
Right. Which is interesting because Zoun, almost as if he could read his opponent's mind, is going straight into Disruptors. One already out on the field, second one being produced right now. So this is going to be an interesting sort of mid to late game.
Yeah, for sure. I think if Zoun can mass up enough Disruptors, he can make a timing attack where Rogue is not going to have a lot of lurkers, and yeah, because if he allows Rogue to get to an optimal amount of lurkers, it gets really hard to engage even with Disruptors. Like, you probably need like a ratio of 2 to 1 Disruptor to lurkers in order to break it. So if he can attack before the lurker count gets too crazy, which it looks like he is, then I think that could be potentially advantageous for Zoun to potentially even take the game. Oh, actually, I like this play. He's actually splitting his Adepts.
Yeah, this is very, very nice. The Adepts obviously don't have the best DPS, especially not against armored units like Roaches. So, are they going to split off, or is this an accidental F2A move? Now, it looks like the first Disruptor hit doesn't really find its mark. Second Disruptor hit does shave off a single Hydralisk, but look at that. We have 6 Lurkers on the way. Ooh, and these Adepts are going to get surrounded by Lings. Looks like they are going to shade up into the main at the same time as the main force is fighting. Ooh, some very nice Disruptor hits, taking care of a lot of the Roaches. At the same time, the Adepts in the main getting some pretty decent damage done. This is pretty good for our blue Protoss.
Yeah, actually, yeah, this is a double prong attack, actually proving to be, I mean, I think it got more damage than it should have gotten.
Right.
And I think it's probably because Rogue kind of didn't split his army correctly. He split the links to take care of the Adepts, which I don't agree with. I think he should have probably sent more Roaches for that. And then links for the Stalker Disruptors and stuff. Although, you know, there are force fields, but I think it would have been a bit better if he split it that way. But anyhow, there is the Lurkers out, so maybe he can kind of stabilize and then use the Ignitus to do some damage across the map, but we shall see.
Yeah, now these Lurkers, ooh, a couple of Disruptor hits are going to shave off a couple of frontline Queens. A recall is forced on the majority of the army, and I like this move a lot by Rogue. He's going to poke forward, initiate the recall, force the recall, and then just back off, because, you know, you don't need to do damage. Just forcing the recall by itself is pretty good, and it buys him a little bit more time, which is really all that he needs. Now, since that first, excuse me, not the first, but the double-pronged attack with the Adepts, which, speaking of which, are attacking his 5th base yet again, he was down by maybe 15 workers or something like that. So at this point, he's just trying to buy enough time, you know, get that Nidus Worm up, for example, right? Make sure that he can stabilize, because right now, Things are looking pretty good for his opponent and not so good for him.
Yeah, a bunch of harassment across the map on both sides, actually. However, it looks like Zoun has gotten the better end of the trade, taking down a hatchery as well as 17 drones. And that is going to bring Zoun to above Rogue in the worker count. This lurker does finally get cleaned up over at the third base of Zoun. And so, yeah, it looks like Zoun is going to be in a pretty great position. He's starting to transition into carriers, which is exactly what you want against a lurker Zerg player.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, how many? 3 lurkers are, 3 carriers are already out. 3 more are on the way. So Rogue is just going to go ahead and pull the trigger, pushes forward with the lurker Roach Hydra army that he has. But I don't think it's going to be enough. He's got more Hydras on the way. Spire is not quite done, which is, you know, indicative of his position in this game. He's pretty low on minerals. His opponent is building up a bank. Things are looking pretty good for Zoun, but, you know, anything can happen, of course, right? If Rogue somehow cleans up all of the ground Protoss army just in one fell swoop, then he could turn the tide pretty quickly. But so far, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. He does have a Nidus Worm going up, which is pretty good for him, but on the other hand, Nidus Worms are very expensive, and if he doesn't make use of them, then they're kind of a waste.
Yeah, looks like he is going to go ahead and try to... Oh, actually, oh, the dog, there's a huge disruptor hit in the middle of the map. Takes out a nice chunk there.
Yeah. It will cost Zoun a couple of key disruptors, but... yeah.
Alright, where?
Now, I do think that Rogue's position is not the worst, right? He's just pumping out as many Hydras as he can. But look at the carrier count, right? Like, it's so many carriers that the Vipers are going to fall immediately, Hydras are getting melted, and GG is called. Zoun takes this game. I like Rogue's decision to go for the straight line third location, since the triangle third is just so far away from the natural, and because it's on the lower ground, it's more vulnerable.
Yeah, we did see a little bit of abusement from Astrea regarding Rogue taking the triangular base during one of the games, right?
Right.
Used the warp prism with a glaive of depths. And started to kind of warp in and harass from the main to the third base area, while the rest of the adepts shaded into the natural. So it was a little bit troublesome for Rogue to handle. I think he does not want to face against that once again.
So far, very standard openings for both players. The Forlings and the 2 Queens are coming out for our Zerg. And I assume after the Cybercore finishes, we're going to see a Stargate on the high ground. Man, every time I see those drones transferring all the way from the main to the third, it kind of hurts me just a little bit. You know, they're taking so long just to go to do more work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the purpose of blocking the hatchery, right? I guess.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's like you gotta commute longer to work.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Rogue went for the inject rather than the creep tumor at his third base. I wonder if it's because he might want to get a little bit more aggressive this time around. I'm not sure.
Yeah, usually you'll see the first creep coming out like at that point, but yeah, it's interesting that he decided. Okay, now he does. So I guess he just wanted to squeeze out a little bit more drones.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, first Void Ray is just about to pop. Looks like that Overlord is going to sacrifice its life. Oh man.
Yeah,
In the
another
last
Overlord.
game, that Overlord lived for 4 minutes. This one only lived for 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yep.
Man, the life expectancy is getting shorter.
No, that Overlord won't be able to go to the movies and watch movies like The Batman or Thor: Love and Thunder or Avatar 2.
Yeah. Is there really a second Avatar coming out?
Yep, it's coming in December of 2022.
Oh man. Same director probably.
Yeah, yeah. He filmed the second and third movie back to back, so um, it's gonna be an Avatar 3 as well.
Oh wow. Interesting.
And then if all goes well, I believe there will be an Avatar 4 and 5 that will be shot back to back as well to close out the
Holy
story.
crap.
So
Wow. That's a lot.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of a lot, looks like Zoun is going to go all in on the Stargate tech. Second Stargate is being produced, +1 air attack is also being researched. So it looks like Rogue is going to have to rely on his queens to defend for now.
Oh man, no spores at the natural, so Rogue
Yeah,
is
that's a
gonna,
little...
yeah.
That Oracle was able to take down 5 more drones, so in total it's killed 7, which is a pretty good number.
And it got away too, alive, so
Yeah.
it can kind of later harass.
Oh, is it going to get away this time? Yeah, just barely. You know, it's so funny because there's always a point, at least in my games, you know, very similar to this game, where both players, both the Zerg and the Protoss are at 3 bases, but it's not exactly time for the Zerg to take a 4th. So my Zerg brain is very uneasy in those few moments. I'm just like, dude, I need to get a 4th, but like I can't, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean because I also play play some Zerg as well, and yeah, it's like you had that feeling or that mindset that you always want to be 1 base ahead.
Right,
And so when you're not, because you gotta saturate that third first, you're like, I just feel a little bit uneasy. But yeah, I get you.
right.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. And since you play Protoss, I assume you feel the same way against Terrans sometimes, although it's probably a little bit more lenient, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, whenever like a Terran is like kind of same timing as my bases, it's like, oh yeah, that's not a great feeling because you want to be you want to be ahead in bases or in the base timing against the Terran. So
right.
it's never a good sign if the Terran is getting their 4th base at the same time as you're getting your 4th base.
Right. Man, that is one lucky adept. That Oracle was on site, ready to zap away at the Zerglings.
All right, looks like Rogue has decided to go for Infestor to deal with the Void Rays, and I like this because you know you can kind of fungal them while they're stacked, and then maybe actually does he have any? Okay, he doesn't have any. Okay, he's making Ravagers now. Yeah, so if you can fungal the Void Rays and then throw some Corrosive Vials on top of them, it's actually quite effective. Now, of course, it does require some nice targeting, but anyhow, here we go. A lot of queens come up. Let's see how many queens. 15 queens. My goodness.
Oh wow! Some of them are kind of low energy too, simply because they had to defend earlier. Wow! Considering that was a pretty solid disruptor hit, I'm surprised it only killed 1 Ravager. But here we go. The transfuses are going down on the frontline Ravagers. I'm not sure if Rogue is going to be able to break through. We do see 1 stasis trap popping, capturing 1 queen and a few Zerglings. These queens are going to keep pushing on through though, and these Void Rays are starting to fall.
Ooh, but the pylon does get unpowered, so these cannons will be turned off and offline for the time being. However, is there enough queens to defeat all these Void Rays? Currently, there are 8 Void Rays out on the field. 3 more are coming out of the Stargate. But there are a lot of Zerglings running across the map. Some few queens still left over, but I think Zoun might actually do it.
Yeah, this is definitely lopsided to say the least, but right when I mentioned that the Void Rays were starting to fall, the rest of them stayed alive. Now, a few of them are going down here and there, but look at that. All of the queens are finally cleaned up. Ooh, a pretty solid Ravager hit, I think. But the core army of Zoun is still alive, right? We see, how many Void Rays is that? That's 6, and then we also see 3 Disruptors on the ground. So those Infestors just were not quite out in time to really do anything useful. Now, at the same time, we do see 3 Vipers on the way, and Vipers and Infestors could definitely change the tide of the battle. But first, they need energy, first they need a supporting army, and then they can start doing their work.
Yeah, and oh, I actually like this play here from Zoun. He's actually splitting his Void Rays, one to the left, one to the right. He's gonna go for a double Void Ray prong attack. Oh man, this is
Ooh. This is seriously starting to hurt because on the left side, the Vipers are not going to be quick enough. They're not going to arrive in time to save that base. Now, it is going to cost them 1 Void Ray as the Vipers are also out. But this is such an interesting game because it feels kind of like Rogue shot forward in tech. Right, he started getting all these spellcasters, but he doesn't really have an army to support them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Zoun has like the brute force kind of army here with the Void Rays and Disruptors and stuff. But Rogue, yeah, he's heavily relying on spellcasters right now with those Infestors, with the Vipers. If he can kind of buy enough time so that he can kind of flesh out the rest of his army with actually brute force army, such as the Broodlords, which is exactly what he's making right now, then it's going to become a really scary army to deal with for Zoun. Because Zoun, yeah, he has the Disruptors, but doesn't have anything else to defend or to deal with the rest, such as maybe Storms or something.
Right, but what do you think about that Void Ray count, right? We see 9 Corruptors against 10 Void Rays. And if the Broodlords are positioned incorrectly, they could die in an instant.
Yeah, the problem is the Infestors with the Vipers is going to be able to deal with the Void Rays if they're... I mean, he can kind of spread them out a little bit, but even then, it's going to be hard to target fire on those Broodlords with them spread out. So, yeah, I think it's going to come down to just the engagements. We see Zoun that is starting to add in those High Templars, which is going to help out, but again, it's going to come down to the engagement.
Right. Well, here we go. The Void Rays, the Sky Toss are going to move out onto the creep. Corruptor Viper is going to respawn. Infestors are going to move into position. The Sky Toss is going to back off, just poking forward just to clear a little bit of creep. But the Broodlord count is definitely getting pretty scary. We have 6 on the field with 2 more just about to pop. So there is no way that any Protoss ground army is going to survive that for too long.
Yeah, we're arriving here at the later game. I would imagine, because I mean, even though it's like not even 13 minutes, I can't see the fight or the game ending anytime soon, just because these players are just building up a very end game type of army composition.
I really like this. We see Zoun splitting off 3 Void Rays to the north, just trying to pick off whatever he can. Because it's almost reaching that point where the Void Rays are a little bit obsolete, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, once you're adding in like things like Vipers and Infestors and Queens, it's like they might not be the best for the game, so you might as well split some army, some Void Rays hit squad to just harass here and there.
Right. This is such an interesting game because I feel like most Zerg games, yes, you do want to arrive at the late game, but you want to arrive with a better economy and then you want to catch up to the tech in a way. And yet in this game, Rogue's method of survival was by beating Zoun to the higher tech, and then from there establishing his late game army. And I kind of like it. I know it was a little bit out of necessity, but I still think it's pretty cool. Ooh, but that is not cool, losing a Viper for free. The second Viper is also going to go down. Wow, these Void Rays are definitely worth losing over a couple of Vipers.
Yeah, I mean, those Vipers, you know, if you can kind of kill them, then that means Rogue has to remake them, but they're going to be popping out with less energy. So that means less energy during the fight, which is advantageous for our red Protoss. So yeah, any Vipers you can kind of pick off, then it's a good thing. We do see the Mama ship actually popping out, halfway done.
Oh,
So
as well as the safety DT shrine. I love it. Very nice.
gotta add those DT shrines.
That's right. Yeah, we're still in that phase where, you know, the Sky Toss is poking forward. Okay, but it looks like Zoun might be finding a good angle on the high ground without the creep. Looks like he's going to back off just a little bit. And yeah, as I was saying, we're in that phase where both players are banking up a lot of money and they're basically spending it only on upgrades for now.
Yep. And pretty much both players are maxed out at this point. And so anything they mine is going to be bonus. And so right now they just got to build up their bank so that they can kind of remax after that huge initial, the first big fight that's going to come up soon. That
Right.
remax is going to be really, really important. And look at here, I like this what Zoun is doing. He's making random cannons and shield batteries out in the middle of the map. And you might be asking, like, why is he doing this? It's because he is going to be maneuvering around the map, and if he can kind of retreat back to his static defense, then he can kind of stabilize his position and just like inch slowly and slowly, kind of similar to like the slow tank push, where you can kind of inch forward little by little, and then eventually you'll be hitting, or you'll be tapping on your opponent's side of the map, and maybe if he can kind of build it far enough, you can kind of take one of Rogue's bases instead.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. Some of my friends, they like to go a step further and put down well, not proxy, but like forward base nexuses. That way their shield batteries can use overcharge. I think that's a little too expensive, but hey, the principle is the same, you know?
Yeah. Alright, so both players just building up their army composition to as perfect as they can. Getting the necessary upgrades as well. You see all the shield upgrades, plus the +1 weapons as well.
I like what both players are doing, right? The Brood Lords are going to poke forward, take care, just chip away at the static defense. And then, of course, the Oracle is going to respond by tagging them and forcing them back for the time being. Because when you combine an Oracle tag with the high range of Tempests, Brood Lords are basically dead.
Alright, looks like both players are just vying for position here. And there's still 3 bases out in the map that can be taken, so we'll see which players kind of take which bases. But yeah, basically the map is almost split at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because I believe Zoun has 7 bases, whereas Rogue just took his 7th on the left side of the map. But yeah, those middle 2 bases are still up for grabs. Looks like both players, like you said, they're just looking for a good position, trying to pick off whatever they can, because both armies are very lethal.
My goodness, how many overseers is that? 18 overseers, my goodness.
Oh, wow. I find it so funny that the storms are used to kill the changelings. You know, like of all the things that it could be used. Now, we do see some banelings rolling forward, not quite able to connect with the High Templar, but if they could, that would be a pretty good trade.
Yeah, if you can kind of trade out as much banelings for High Templars, then Yeah, that's when you can really take on the fight because you just get on top of the Protoss army and they have nothing stopping you. Usually they'll have Storm, but no High Templar, no Storm.
Right, right. Okay, and feedback went down on, I believe, one of the Vipers, but those Corruptors are kind of sharking around. They're looking for whatever they can pick off, but the Sky Toss is about to engage with the... Ooh! Hold that thought, because those were some excellent feedbacks. All 4 Infestors are either dead or out of energy. Some more excellent feedbacks, forcing back the Vipers for the time being. Looks like Rogue has no choice but to engage with the Queens right now. Those feedbacks might have saved Zoun, but is this too much? We see this cloud of Corruptors finally moving in, taking care of the Void Rays and the Carriers, and now moving on to the Tempest. The number of Queens is just too high to keep feedbacking. The High Templar are gone, and look at this. Reinforcing with only Stalkers, which is definitely not the highest tier unit that you want to be making right now.
Yeah, I think he warped in Stalkers because he noticed that there's mainly just Corruptors in the sky.
Right,
and
right.
So that not a lot of ground forces to defend the Broodlords.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to be relying on heavy amounts of Blink Stalkers here in the late game. But
Yeah.
Zoun, he still has a lot of bank left over, so I think it's okay if he can trade a bit of Stalkers around. He's making 7 carriers on the
oh,
production tab.
jeez. Plus the mothership.
Yeah.
He's just remaking a Skytoss army. It's as though he's a Zerg, you know.
I know, right?
But yeah, like you said, those Broodlords were vulnerable because everything else had already died. So the quickest way was to warp in a bunch of Stalkers to take care of them. The only 2 downsides would be, of course, the supply and the money that you invest into those Stalkers. But like you said, Zoun had a pretty big bank. He could afford it. But look at this. Now we're already back to max supply. These Lings, of course, are going to try to take care of whatever static defense that they can, because, of course, they are also minerals, just like the static defense. At the same time, the Stalkers are going to try to trade out for whatever drones they can. But yeah, this game is interesting. I think that Rogue definitely got the better end of that earlier trade, even though he got feedback like crazy, because his bank was non-existent. And now his bank is equal to Zoun's, which indicates to me that he's caught up.
Yep. So, yeah, we have ourselves, I would say, a pretty even game thus far, because both players, I mean, yeah, Rogue is a little bit down on the worker count, but at this point, there's not a lot of bases left over where you need a lot of drones, and eventually they'll be trading workers for army supply. Wow, how much carriers is that? 10 carriers, okay.
Oh, wow. How many Corruptors are there? So there's 21, plus the Vipers, so it's still doable for either player, right? As long as the High Templar get good feedbacks and storms, the Zerg is not going to be an issue. But as long as the Vipers are able to get Parabombs, or, well, more preferably, Abducts, and shave off carriers individually, then the Zerg will win. So this really comes down to the micro.
Yeah, and Rogue ought to take the engagements near his Spore Crawlers, because those Spore Crawlers can kind of take a lot of those interceptors.
Right.
And help out during the battle. But it looks like they're actually going to pass each other in the day of the night. Zoun going for the left side, Rogue's Broodlords at the right side. Corruptors does come over to the left to help defend, but there's only a couple of Spore Crawlers, so maybe if you can kind of add in some nice fungos and some parasitic bombs, and then get the carriers to clean up the rest. But actually going for a recall, so these Broodlords are going to be temporarily vulnerable. But again, these Spore Crawlers are going to provide some nice coverage for these Broodlords.
Yeah, I don't know who benefits from that, because of course neither player really lost too much. We do see some Broodlords taking damage, but yeah, I mean, as long as you get good feedbacks, you should be okay. Ooh, a very nice abduct on the mothership. And now look at that, all the High Templar are down. They're only able to feedback Queens, which is really not what you want to be feedbacking at the moment. you need to be feedbacking the Vipers and the Infestors. So looks like the Corruptors are just going to go ahead and kill all the carriers. Queens in the back, transfusing whatever they can. Broodlords as well, doing what they can. Obviously not enough to clean up the rest of the Stalkers, but the Queens are really, they feel like the backbone of this army right now.
Yeah, but Zoun actually warping a bunch of Stalkers, clearing up all the Broodlords, and then getting underneath these Corruptors. Because, you know, Stalkers can take a bunch of Queen hits for the time being while they can focus fire on the Corruptors. And so Zoun is going to go ahead and momentarily win the trade there, win the battle. However, Rogue going to go ahead and try to remax on 14 more Corruptors, some Ultralists as well, so sprinkle in as well, and hopefully clear up all this Protoss ground force.
Yeah, it's just like last engagement where the Protoss went for the quick and, you know, more or less cheaper sort of ground Protoss army. But I feel like the real value is coming from units such as the Tempests, which, by the way, are not engaging at the moment. Looks like Zoun wants to rely on his Stalkers on the ground as well as his static defense to hold off the Zerg for now. He's just trying to remax on the Sky Toss before he re-engages, which is actually a pretty smart move, given that the Zerg is already having trouble dealing with the static defense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cannons and shield batters here. Very well fortified base here at the right side. Trying to actually take the left side as well, but Rogue is going to go ahead and shut that down with these Corruptors. And we find ourselves again in the split map scenario. And that last base at the left side is going to be, I would imagine, a point of contention later on the game, as both players are going to starve. I mean, both of them sitting on a nice, decent bank still, but eventually, after that next fight, and maybe even the next fight after that, the resource in the banks will get diminished, and they will have to fight over that left side base.
Yeah, I like that Rogue is just going to go ahead, set up his static defense on the high ground, and take that base anyways. He never remade the base, the triangle third base, simply because it wasn't really worth it to him to, you know, build back up another base. But yeah, there are some, you know, saturation issues here and there, as is common in every game. Looks like some probes are being sacrificed for the greater good. So now we're getting into the, you know, more extreme late game.
Alright, so it's interesting to note that Zoun is actually replenishing his army with carriers and air army, but Rogue, on the other hand, going for a more ground-focused kind of army with his Ultralists and Lurkers. Gonna go ahead and hit the 3 o'clock base here. We'll take out the majority of these cannons, but can he clear up the rest? Where's the rest of Zoun's army? Just chilling.
Yeah, this is a very efficient trade for Zoun, simply because he's not trading army. He's trading a couple of Immortals for basically all of the Ultralists. All that's left are Queens and Lurkers to deal with that base, which is pretty good. But it gives him room, more importantly, for the Sky Toss to go over to the left-hand base, taking care of all the static defense and pushing back the Corruptors for the time being. So it looks like the Infestors, Vipers, and Corruptors and Queens, they're not going to be able to engage this Sky Toss army for now.
Alright, so funnily enough, it looks like maybe both the players are going to trade bases. So it seems like Zoun might want to go for the 9 o'clock instead of the 3 o'clock, while Rogue wants to go for the 3 o'clock, but not the 9 o'clock.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I don't know about this Lurker switch, right? Because we see a huge Sky Toss army. What use are Lurkers going to be? They are going to take care of the High Templar, but if you don't have enough Corruptors and anti-air to take care of the Sky Toss, then there's really no use.
Yeah. That's going to be a problem here, definitely for Rogue, as he figures out how to deal with these Tempests and carriers. He is trying to add in some Hydralisks, also some Vipers. However, is it going to be enough? He does have a good amount of infestors actually. Let's see here, 7 infestors, and all of them are, I think, full energy as well. So that's going to be pretty important during the fight.
Yeah, the thing that I'm nervous about is that I believe feedback range outranges a lot of spells. I'm not too sure, but all I know is that at the very least, feedback has the same range as a lot of spells. And so, look at Rogue's gas count. Like, he has no gas. He's gonna be able to remax on Lings, but that's about it, right? So as soon as he loses the infestors, they're gonna be done for good. Like, a couple of infestors just now got feedbacked. They're gone for good. This is... The longer this game goes on, the more it favors Zoun, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially since there's not a wall of spore crawlers. It's like the wall of spore crawlers has been gone right now. Or unless I'm not looking anywhere. Yeah, I don't see any like wall of spore crawlers to help during the fight that can take these interceptors and distract them, while the rest of the Vipers and infestors and Hydralisks take care of the carriers itself. So yeah, Rogue gotta be careful because, like you mentioned, no more gas left, no more gas bank left in the tank. So gotta be super careful.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Looks like the lurkers are gonna try to come in. I like that time stop or time warp. I forget what the name of it is, but basically the bubble that slows down time in that zone being used to push back the lurkers for the time being. But again, right? Like, so many lurkers. Imagine if all that gas was put into corruptors, then I could see the Sky Zerg having a chance against Zoun. But for now, this mothership coupled with all the carriers, Void Rays, and Tempest, it's a terrifying army.
Yeah, it's a quite scary army indeed, and he still has a huge bank, and can potentially get more of a bank, bigger bank, by taking that non-block base there. So yeah, Zoun, he should, I mean, feel pretty good in the, well, at the very least, I would be like to be in Zoun's shoes right now compared to Rogue. But you know, Rogue, yeah, he has definitely played in many situations like this and pulled off the rabbit out of the hat. So I mean, it's still not over. I mean, with some good spell casting, one big fight can kind of determine the outcome here.
Right. Okay, here we go. Lurkers are going to burrow right on top of that little patch of static defense. We do see storms going down, time warp. Corruptors are finally going to engage, but these storms are critical. Some decent fungals, but that's about it. GG. Zoun takes the series.